So this is why this work was created a particular way, as line drawings, as drawings that are almost not complete. It was to speak to that invisibility, this need to push women that look this particular way out of city centers. Hey, my name is Senzeni Marasela. I live in Soweto, outside of Johannesburg, in South Africa. In Africa, to put more in the context. A lot of my work is around the story of my own mother, Theodorah, who was born in a village in the Eastern Cape and travels to Johannesburg. Now, if you are aware of the history of Africa, Johannesburg is still the city of gold, this dream destination. A lot of Africans come to Joburg, come through Joburg, come and live there to look for better lives, if we can call it that way. So my mother had her own journeys to strangeness from the Eastern Cape into Johannesburg. And she experienced a lot of traumas. And because I realized that my own mother, who's much older, almost 80, doesn't speak. So in a way, I speak for her and probably a lot of women her generation and mine through the performance work that I do. So this dress that I'm wearing, I picked it up 2013, and I wore it every day until last year, 1 October. For 6 years, I had it on every single day. I think basically what I wanted people to say, to see, or what I wanted to say was, these women who are usually invisible, nobody sees, and they occupy the margins of society. I was putting her in your face, my persona. Because I didn't stop being Senzeni, I didn't stop traveling, I didn't stop going to spaces that I usually occupy Senzeni. So I performed every day in this dress. And of course, I was treated quite badly most of the time because of how I look. Not only in South Africa, but even when I traveled Europe, in America, in the dress. I remember one time I was in Italy. There were women who wanted to offer me food because they thought I was a refugee. And I've had. And then 2 days later, for the Vienna Biennale, I was offered money as well. The same thing when I was in New York, getting held up at the borders because they thought I was coming in New York as a refugee, and they didn't understand why I had so many dresses that were the same, even though I was staying a week. So I think those are challenges that I expected people to treat me in a particular way, but then there were a lot of things that surprised me about how, when I'm quiet and I cannot speak, or I'm not speaking for myself, people assume a lot of things because of the way that I look. And then when I eventually do speak, then something else happens. But I no longer wear it on a day-to-day basis, So now it becomes an outfit of special occasions, that I take out, like coming here today to Oslo for an opening. I will come wearing it for a special occasion. But it is too heavy for me to wear every day, and cities are very difficult for women. They're very masculine spaces. And I guess the more you look like me, who, in the context of my country, this dress represents women that are poor and rural. And then when I leave the continent, I look like a refugee, someone who's desperate, who's needy, and possibly not wanted in that space. In terms of what I know, how refugees are treated when they travel. I think it's probably also one of the reasons why I didn't want to prolong it longer than those 5-6 years I did it, because it was becoming difficult emotionally to carry the dress, and try and live in the world with it on. And hence, this is why this work looks like this, because this is a figure that is here and not there. And once when you are walking the streets and you are present and people want to remove that presence that represents poverty and backwardness so I was trying to make a comment on that. The fact that women that look like this probably would look like my mother and other women. They can't walk as freely as other women in the streets. They're almost invisible. So this is why this work was created in a particular way, as line drawings, as drawings that are almost not complete. It was to speak to that invisibility, this need to push women that look this particular way out of city centers, because even in my country, they occupy the edges. These are women that are hawkers and sell in the streets. And I think in the book of Winnie Mandela, it's one of my favorite books, The Cry of Winnie Mandela. These women wait for their husbands to come back from wherever they're working. But then they wait in the most traumatic ways. And because they're very traumatized and ostracized by society, they start having these imaginary conversations with Winnie Mandela about how long she waited. Because she waited 27 years for Nelson, and waited very publicly, and in a very humiliating ways. So then my persona, Theodorah, begins her journey as that type of a woman who travels to Joburg. Because remember I said earlier on that these dresses represent these women who travel these journeys from villages into cities. So my Theodorah travels into the city, to look for this fictional husband. But it's a journey of self-discovery that she takes on. Because, and a lot of my work, it's titled, this body of work the last 6 years, it's been called Waiting for Gebane, who's supposedly the husband. But I never reveal him. I never make him appear in the work. I think people who see me in Joburg assume that he's there because they look at the dress. But I don't, he doesn't appear, I don't talk about him, I don't intend on showing him. It doesn't matter what he looks like, But women wait all the time, in different ways. We have women who wait for soldiers to go to war, even in this day, who wait for months. And the condition in which they wait, when neighbors and other family members survey on behalf of these men who are gone. But also dresses are historical documents, because they mark a particular time, and people, because I remember the day that Princess Diana died, where I was and what I was wearing. And that was 23 years ago, But then we have wedding dresses to mark particular days as women. When you go and graduate with a particular dress. Because I know people who still have dresses from their last year of high school when they go to the ball. And people who keep wedding dresses for their daughters and certain things. So it marks us, the dress, and it places us in a certain hierarchy in society. So again, this performance gave birth to this type of work where I'm dealing with a figure that is almost appearing and disappearing and quite thinly stitched. And also the tradition of stitching is quite strong in my country, making things by hand, and beautiful objects, because we also come from a very difficult history in South Africa, where images were censored. Because we're still new to ways of looking in South Africa because of apartheid, and they only started repealing censorship laws in the 90s. That's when we were starting to see a lot of things that were hidden and put in national archives. There were a lot of books banned. There were a lot of photographs that were banned. A lot of censoring on television, a lot of censoring of movies, so that we had no idea what was happening around us in the country while we were growing up. So I guess it also answers to why the image and why the representation of the body and the figure is important to a lot of artists. Because we're dealing with new material as South Africans, the photograph.